The silence beneath the Arctic shelf was absolute. No sonar ping, no reactor hum, just the endless pressure of 3,000 feet of freezing water pressing against the hull of the USS Ellison. And then, it happened. A clatter, a hiss, a scream, and a junior sailor bleeding on the deck. It wasn't combat. It wasn't a leak. It was a wrench thrown across the engine room by another sailor. Let us know in the comments which branch of the military you admire most. 2 minutes earlier, everything had been routine. A mid-patrol systems check, oxygen filter replacement, coolant rotation. Seaman First Class Jonah Hayes was tightening the housing bolts when Seaman Craig Darnell, a stocky 22-year-old with a chip on his shoulder, snapped. "Don't touch my gear," Darnell had barked. Hayes, confused, replied, "We're following." "The checklist, man." And then the wrench flew directly into Hayes's brow, slicing the skin open and sending him backward into the bulkhead. Blood on the deck. A medic called. Engineering team frozen. That's when Commander Ryan Sullivan arrived. Not running, not yelling, just walking, calmly, powerfully. The room parted. He didn't ask what happened. He already knew. Sullivan had spent the last 19 years in submarines. He didn't just understand pressure, he was pressure. His crew called him ice water, behind his back. Not because he was cold, but because he never boiled, no matter the crisis. But this wasn't technical failure. This was human fracture. He stood between Darnell, red-faced, tense, and Hayes, now bandaged and seated in the corner. "Report," Sullivan said quietly. Chief McAllister spoke. Seaman Darnell threw a tool during maintenance dispute. Struck. Seaman Hayes caused minor laceration, potential concussion. "Why?" "Personal boundaries, sir," McAllister muttered. "Territorial behavior, emotional agitation." Sullivan looked at Darnell. "Is that true?" Darnell clenched his fists. "He went through my kit." Without asking, Sullivan stepped forward. "And so you tried to brain your crewmate with a tool?" Darnell's voice cracked. "I didn't." "Mean to? You threw it hard enough to break bone. You meant it." Darnell didn't respond. Sullivan turned to Chief McAllister. "Remove Seaman Darnell from engineering rotation. He's on utility watch for the next 48 hours. No weapons. Access. Escort him to his quarters." "He's on direct supervision." "Yes, sir." "And Hayes?" McAllister looked over. "Stable, sir. No signs of concussion." Sullivan nodded. "Put him back on duty when cleared, but not with Darnell. Ever again." Later that evening, in the captain's mess, Lieutenant Bishop approached Sullivan with a report in hand. "He's still agitated," Bishop said. "Darnell, he's pacing in his bunk, muttering." Sullivan sipped his tea. "Let him pace." "With respect, sir. This isn't just a fight. He's cracked. That kind of reaction doesn't come from one disagreement." Sullivan looked up. "I know, that's why he's still aboard." Bishop furrowed his brow. "You're keeping him?" "We're 17 days from port. I don't get to pick and choose my crew in the middle of the Arctic. But what if he snaps again?" Sullivan placed his cup down gently. "Then we'll be ready. But this sub is not just a machine. It's a test. You either learn or you get taught." In the lower deck corridors, Hayes sat alone, staring at his bandage in the reflection of a dark window. His hand trembled slightly. Petty Officer Reese walked by, then stopped. "You all right?" Hayes nodded. "Yeah. You sure?" Hayes didn't speak for a long time. "I joined the Navy because I thought it would teach me to control myself," he finally said. "I never thought I'd be afraid of others losing it." Reese sat down across from him. "You're not afraid of Darnell," he said. "You're afraid of what that kind of rage does down here." Hayes nodded. "That fear, it's not weakness, it's awareness. And that's what keeps us alive." 2 days passed. Darnell remained quiet, obedient. But something about his movements was off, too calculated, too restrained. He volunteered for extra mess duty, helped scrub reactor filters, said sir to everyone, but no one trusted it, especially not Sullivan. On day 3 of utility watch, Darnell requested access to his gear locker to retrieve personal effects. Standard protocol allowed it, but only under supervision. Lieutenant Bishop escorted him. 5 minutes in, Bishop noticed a small electronic device hidden beneath Darnell's bunk mattress. A relay node. "Where'd you get this?" Bishop snapped. Darnell said nothing. Bishop hit the emergency comms switch. "Commander to forward crew quarters. We've got a breach." The relay node was a restricted device, capable of broadcasting low-frequency signals even from underwater. Piggybacking on sonar pings, there was no reason for it to be on board, and yet, there it was. Sullivan stood in the sealed compartment, examining the device as Bishop held Darnell in cuffs beside him. "Who gave this to you?" Darnell stared at the floor. "It's not what you think." "Then explain." "I brought it on board. From my last station, I was testing it." "You smuggled an unregistered communication node onto a nuclear submarine." "That's not testing. That's treason." Darnell's face flushed. "I wasn't trying to betray anyone. I wanted to prove something." "Prove what?" Darnell looked up, eyes burning. "That we're vulnerable. That even in this perfect little bubble of control, one man can shake everything." Silence. Sullivan stepped forward. "You didn't break this crew, Darnell. You just exposed yourself." He turned to Bishop. "Quarantine the device and lock him down." That night, Sullivan addressed the crew over internal comms. "No alarms, no panic. But you should know this. There are 2 kinds of danger in this boat. The one outside, and the one we carry inside. This week we met both." He paused. "The only defense against either is discipline." The crew listened in silence. Every man felt the weight of it. 3 days after the relay device was discovered, USS Ellison continued its silent glide through Arctic waters. No further incidents had occurred, no rogue signals, no violent outbursts. But peace on a submarine never meant stillness. It meant pressure waiting to break. Commander Sullivan wasn't convinced it was over. He gathered a small intelligence team in the auxiliary comms room. Only trusted officers, Lieutenant Bishop, Petty Officer Reese, and the ship's technical analyst, Ensign Monroe. "Let's assume Darnell didn't act alone," Sullivan began. "Who else had access to the same storage bay?" Monroe pulled up a manifest. 4 names, sir. Hayes, Chief Reynolds, Technician Maddox, and Darnell himself. Bishop squinted. "Hayes? He's the one Darnell hit." "Exactly," Sullivan said. "Would you assault your co-conspirator in front of the entire engineering crew?" "No, sir." "Which makes it theater," Sullivan muttered. "Or a message." Reese leaned forward. "What about Maddox?" Sullivan tapped the table. "That's where we start." Technician First Class Maddox was a quiet man in his early 30s. Brilliant with electrical systems, socially awkward, and obsessively punctual. He had served on 2 prior submarines and held a clean record. He didn't blink when questioned. "No, sir. I've never seen the device before. I did routine diagnostics on the power relays last week, but nothing beyond standard protocol." "You were in the same bay as Darnell," Bishop said. 3 separate times. "I was fixing a corrosion leak." "Check the log." Sullivan kept his eyes fixed. "You knew he was acting erratically. Why didn't you report it?" Maddox hesitated. "It's not my job to report personalities, just technical errors." "Wrong answer," Sullivan said. That night, the diagnostic grid flickered again. A 0.7-second delay between sonar and navigation. Feedback, barely perceptible, not enough to register as an alert, but Ensign Monroe caught it. "Something's piggybacking on our ping return," she said. "It's not constant, only every 3rd sweep." Sullivan was called immediately. "What's the threat?" "If it's what I think," Monroe said, "someone is encoding data inside our outbound sonar." Bishop's face paled. "You mean we're sending messages?" Sullivan nodded grimly, without knowing it. At 100 hours, Sullivan initiated Protocol GhostNet, a stealth operation to simulate a systems failure and flush out the saboteur. We're going to fake a reactor. Temperature spike, he explained to the bridge officers. Only a handful of us will know. We'll see who tries to respond or override. Within 30 minutes, a silent drill commenced. No alarms, just a slow climb in internal heat on paper. 35 minutes in, someone attempted to access the cooling override panel from an auxiliary terminal. Lieutenant Bishop was there waiting. The officer who approached, Technician Maddox, he froze when he saw Bishop standing in the corridor. I was running checks, he said. No, you weren't. I got an alert. An alert no one else saw? Maddox tried to run. 2 MPs tackled him before he hit the ladder well, in. The interrogation bay. Maddox broke under pressure. I didn't design the attack, he whispered. I just deployed it. Keller wrote the core scripts. Darnell smuggled the node. I was supposed to activate the sonar piggyback code if we hit a certain depth. Keller again, Bishop said. Is he even alive? He's watching. Always watching. He said the Navy was full of cracks. Said submarines were blind to their own shadows. Sullivan stayed silent for a long moment. Then, and you believed him? Maddox looked up, voice shaky. I believed no one else was paying attention. Commander Sullivan brought the core crew together that evening. Reese, Bishop, Monroe, and Seaman Hayes. No longer a suspect, but the one man who seemed to understand how fast trust could collapse under pressure. We've eliminated the operatives, Sullivan said, but not the architect. Keller is still out there, and we now know he had access to internal Navy protocols. Reese asked, how do we defend against someone who never steps on board? Monroe answered, you don't block the shadow. You light the room, Sullivan nodded. Then we light it brighter than ever. They began Project Watchtower, every system re-audited, every piece of custom code recompiled, every inch of cable, relay, conduit, and switch reviewed. It wasn't glamorous work, it was war in the form of maintenance. But the crew adapted. The tension eased. Trust began to mend. On day 21, as the sub approached its southern return route, sonar registered a vessel, unidentified, running silent, no beacon, no name. It followed at a fixed distance for 4 hours, then vanished. The crew didn't speak of it, but everyone thought the same thing. Keller was still out there. Hayes returned. To engineering full-time. He no longer flinched at hissing steam pipes or sudden clatters, but he did walk slower, watched more, listened better. Chief McAllister noticed. You all right, Hayes? Getting there, sir. You're sharper now. That's what the pressure does. It cooks weakness or it forges steel. Hayes looked down, at his hands, no longer trembling. I think I'm finally learning how to hold the line. The next 72 hours aboard the USS Ellison were the quietest of the entire patrol. But Commander Sullivan didn't trust silence. He stood in the sonar room with Ensign Monroe, watching the playback logs from the shadow contact 3 days earlier. Did it send anything? He asked. No outgoing signal. But it definitely had ears, sir. Monroe enlarged the sonar burst. There, see that? It mimicked our return ping pattern. Sullivan frowned. It listened by repeating us? Exactly. It looped our own sound. Signature, but shifted slightly, barely enough to detect. That's not just passive listening. That's data sampling. Sullivan stared at the still image. That wasn't just a sub. That was a probe. That evening, in the mess, Lieutenant Bishop slid a sealed folder onto the table beside Sullivan. Message from Pacific Command, encrypted, direct eyes only. Sullivan opened it, his jaw clenched as he read. Bishop watched. Sir, Sullivan handed him the page. Operation. Midnight Prophet had been reactivated. The last time Sullivan saw that code name, he was in Bahrain. 2006. A Black Ops intel sweep targeting internal moles inside NATO's eastern flank. And the name at the bottom of the file? Ethan Keller. Sir, Bishop said, voice tight. Why would they reactivate a dead project? Because it was never dead, Sullivan replied. They think Keller's alive? No, Sullivan said. They know. Elsewhere on the Ellison, Seaman Hayes couldn't sleep. He kept hearing echoes, not voices, just clicks. Every 20 minutes, a faint static. Tapped through the wall by his bunk, like Morse code with missing letters. He logged it, reported it. No one else heard it, until midnight. Monroe picked up a matching pulse on the auxiliary wiring grid. She triangulated it. Deck 4, auxiliary ballast control junction. Sullivan ordered the panel opened. Inside was a second transmitter node, smaller than the first, stealthed, embedded into the wire insulation itself. Someone had placed it after launch, and someone had powered it recently. Crew panic didn't erupt. It simmered. Rumors swept fast. The traitor wasn't caught. Keller was inside the hull. The Ellison was compromised again. Discipline held, but barely. Sullivan summoned his corps officers. This is no longer sabotage, he said. This is intelligence warfare. Keller is treating our ship like a test bed. Reese asked, how did that second node get planted? Monroe answered, during the fire drill last week, Deck 4 was unmonitored for 17 minutes. That was after Darnell's arrest, Bishop added. Exactly, Monroe said, which means someone else planted it. A third accomplice. Reese looked stunned. A third? Sullivan leaned forward. And we're going to find them. They reviewed every shift log, every crew movement, every utility rotation. Then something stood out. A temporary reassignment order, handwritten, signed under Sullivan's name. But Sullivan never wrote it. The form reassigned Ensign Clive Redding, a supply officer, to Deck 4 auxiliary ballast during the fire drill. Sullivan had only spoken to Redding twice in 3 months, and Redding was missing. Not vanished, just quiet, absent, late to duty, not responding to page calls. When they found him, he was sleeping, or pretending to. He snapped up when Monroe opened the door. What is this? You tell us, Bishop said. They searched his locker. Behind a wall panel, taped to the metal bulkhead, was a third device. Larger, battery-powered, and wired into the navigation gyroscope. Monroe gasped. This could send real-time position data, without triggering our external comms checks. Sullivan stared down at Redding. You were going to broadcast our exact location. Redding's face cracked. I was ordered. You don't understand. Keller, he's trying to save the Navy. Bishop grabbed him by the collar. You call this saving? He said the system was broken. That corruption ran deep. He said if I didn't help, I'd be sent to die anyway. Sullivan said nothing. He looked down at the device. Then he turned to Bishop. Strip him of rank. Lock him in emergency storage bay 3, round-the-clock guard. Back in the command room, Monroe turned to Sullivan. That makes 3. No, Sullivan said. That confirms 1. Keller? No, he said. An idea, a movement, a virus in the ranks. Reese sat down hard. If there's more, how do we even begin to trust again? Sullivan finally looked tired. You don't. You verify. Then you verify again. And then you stay one step ahead. Day 27 of the patrol. Just 120 nautical miles from Pearl Harbor. The Ellison ascended toward periscope depth. Suddenly a proximity alarm. Object approaching. Stern. Fast. Sullivan jumped to the command console. Enemy? Too small. Looks like a torpedo? No sonar ping. No launch signature, Monroe said. It's drifting. No motor. A dummy torpedo. A decoy. Bishop looked up. Message? The torpedo scraped the hull gently and attached, magnetically. Emergency shutdown was initiated. A dive maneuver was triggered. Divers were dispatched from inside the sub, standard Navy protocol in extreme sabotage cases. They pulled it free. And inside? Sealed capsule, Encrypted data drive. No explosion, just information. Keller's signature. He wanted them to find it. Commander Sullivan stood in the encrypted chamber near the reactor core, where no signals could escape, and no one could listen in. The sealed capsule from the dummy torpedo sat before him, open. Inside, a rugged USB device, military-grade, shielded. He looked at Monroe. "Did you scan it?" "Yes, sir. No active threats. It's a one-way archive. Can't write to it, only read." "Let's see what Keller wants us to know." She inserted the drive into the secure terminal. A folder opened. Project Justifying Silence. Last modified 6 days ago. Inside, logs, videos, reports, audio files from internal Navy briefings, some dated back nearly a decade. Sullivan recognized a few names, a few ships, even some confidential programs that weren't supposed to exist anymore. But one video file was labeled differently. To Commander Ryan Sullivan, "Play me." Monroe glanced at him. Sullivan clicked it. The screen flickered. And then, the face appeared, aged, bearded. Deep blue eyes behind thin-framed glasses. Ethan Keller. He was alive. "Ryan," Keller said, voice gravelly but calm. "If you're watching this, congratulations. You've proven you still have control. But what you don't know is that you were never in charge." Sullivan didn't blink. "You remember Bahrain. You remember Project Midnight Prophet. You remember what we were told to erase. I didn't erase it. I studied it. I followed the signals. And I saw what was coming. Not from our enemies, but from within." Keller leaned closer. "The systems are flawed. The protocols are blind. Submarines are the last free places in the Navy, because no one can monitor. You under 900 feet of water. That makes them powerful, but it also makes them dangerous." He paused. "You stopped Darnell. You stopped Maddox. You stopped Redding. But you didn't stop me. I wanted you to see. I wanted you to feel what it's like to command in the dark, without trust, without certainty. That's the future." Keller's eyes burned. "We have more. And we're watching. The ocean isn't loyal to anyone, only to silence." The screen went black. Monroe exhaled. "That's not a message." "No," Sullivan replied. "That's a manifesto." Later that night, Sullivan stood on the bridge. The Ellison was approaching Pearl Harbor. They would surface by morning. Bishop approached. "What do we tell command?" "The truth," Sullivan said. "All of it. As much as they can stand." "And the rest?" Sullivan stared at the ceiling. Steel above, stars beyond. "We keep it quiet, for now." Bishop nodded. "And the crew?" Sullivan's eyes narrowed. "We tell them what matters. That we held the line. That the mission didn't break us." In the mess hall, Seaman Hayes sat across from Monroe, nervously clutching his food tray. "They said you cracked the transmitter," he said. "I analyzed it," Monroe replied. "But the real test was holding the crew together." Hayes nodded. "Keep thinking about how it started. Just one guy, Darnell, and how it spread." Monroe answered, "That's how rot begins. Quiet. Just enough to test the walls." Hayes frowned. "So how do you stop it from happening again?" Monroe looked him in the eye. "You teach people to listen before they shout, and to act before they doubt." Sullivan addressed the crew in person before surfacing. They stood in perfect rows. No more whispers, no fear, just steel-eyed silence. "We were tested," he began. "Not by enemy sonar, not by weapons, but by doubt. Someone tried to break the spine of this ship by shaking our trust in each other." He let the words hang. "And you stood firm. You questioned. You verified. You didn't panic. And because of that, this sub is coming home." He paused. "There's still more to uncover. And there's more Keller hasn't shown us. But what I know is this. We are not perfect. We are not invincible. But we are not alone. And we don't lose because someone tries to break us. We lose if we let them." His voice tightened. And this crew didn't flinch. They surfaced just after dawn. The sunlight hit the Ellison like a baptism. Flags flew. Naval officers stood ready. Black SUVs waited on the dock, but inside the boat, where the real battle had taken place, there was no applause, no ceremony, just quiet victory. Sullivan stepped off first. He handed off the encrypted drive. He nodded once and never spoke a word of Keller again. A nuclear submarine is a machine of silence, but inside it live hearts that beat with doubt, duty, and discipline. In this story, a commander was tested, not by depth charges or enemy sonar, but by something far more dangerous: betrayal from within. And when the smoke cleared, the message wasn't that the Navy is perfect. It's that integrity must be louder than silence. What would you have done in Commander Sullivan's place? Would you have told the crew the full truth or kept it classified? Let us know in the comments, and if you want more true-to-life military stories about discipline, duty, and decisions in the deep, subscribe to Authority Watch, because silence may protect a ship, but only truth keeps it afloat.